Now that the Bad Batch is officially over, it's time to rank Star Wars TV shows from worst to best. In last place for me is the Book of Boba Fett. This show is offensively bad in my opinion. The first issue is that they took Boba Fett, who is known as being this ruthless bounty hunter, and they made a show about him now trying to become friends with all these different mob bosses. And then even the elements of that could have been cool, like all the different flashbacks when he was in the Bacta tank, ended up just feeling very boring to me. And don't get me started on just the level of stupidity of some things in the show, like the scooter gang for one. Legitimately, the only good episodes of the show were the Mando episodes where he's with Luke and Ahsoka. But even that has some problems because A, it either should have just happened in the Mandalorian Season 3, or B, it should have just never happened at all because it completely changes the end of Mandalorian Season 2. Just a terrible show all around. Number 8 is the Bad Batch. Obviously, we just got the Season 3 final, which is now the series final. And I will say, I think the very final episode of the show was pretty good, but overall, it was just painfully mediocre, especially the first 2 seasons. Omega just constantly got on my nerves in those. And I definitely think that Season 3 is easily the best season of this show so far, but some things are just not good in it. Like Omega on Tantus for like the last 4 or 5 episodes really just made them all feel super repetitive and just slowed down the pacing. There was a lot of things that we just didn't even get to by the end of the series. Like, I feel like Sid's entire storyline was just completely abandoned. And not to mention that the fact that the entire point of the show seemed to be, oh, we're finally going to explain how they cloned Palpatine. But then by the end of the show, we don't answer the question. And now I actually have more questions about it. Number 7 is the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I feel like a lot of people are way too harsh on this. Like, yes, there are some very cringy moments with the little kid Leia. I don't think Reva was like an all-time great villain or anything, but I do think she was way too overhated by the fan base. I think she was a solid character. What really carried the show, though, was obviously the moments between Obi-Wan and Vader. They were all incredible and gave me some of my favorite Star Wars moments. At number 6, I have the Ahsoka series. This is another show that I have very mixed feelings about because it gives us some absolutely incredible moments. And I think all the castings of the live-action Rebels members like Sabine and Ezra for sure were really good. Hera, I wasn't really sold on until the last couple episodes of the show. I thought Shin Hati and Baylan Skoll, rest in peace Ray Stevenson, were amazing antagonists for the show though. I also really enjoyed seeing Thrawn back in this show. He did a great job reprising this role. Honestly, like the Clone Wars flashbacks were awesome. I also think this show looks pretty good visually and had way better lightsaber fights than a lot of modern Star Wars things do. Number 5 is the first really great show on this list. It's Tales of the Jedi. I know this is only kind of shorts, but I don't care. The Dooku stories in this were absolute masterpieces. Like, I can't believe how good they were. The Ahsoka ones had a little bit of an underwhelming ending with this dude, but they were still also enjoyable as well, and I cannot wait for Tales of the Empire. At number 4, I have Star Wars Rebel. Now, this is a show that has a very slow start at the very beginning. It just seems like this is made for literal babies. But once the show picks up, it never turns back, and the story truly turns into something amazing, and it's also supported by an amazing cast of supporting characters. Like, they're literally all so likable, and I think they all had amazing arcs throughout the show, especially Kanan, though. Like, his end will always be so sad to me. It also helped a lot when the animation definitely improved in those later seasons. At number 3, we have The Mandalorian, which honestly could be number 2 or 1 if Season 3 was not just such a letdown. But we can't forget how absolutely amazing the first 2 seasons of this were. It kind of being that like monster of the week western just set in the Star Wars universe was perfect. And it literally had a perfect ending at the end of Season 2 with Din and Grogu. And if they wanted to bring just Din back to do more adventures and then maybe kind of build up to more Bo-Katan, I would have been very happy with Season 3. But no, they brought Grogu back for absolutely no reason. And it was just pointless for like 90% of the season. And we were so focused on just expanding this and connecting it to other characters and planets in the universe that we just lost what made this special. I still think, honestly, Season 3 should have just focused on Bo-Katan and had no Din and Grogu whatsoever. At number 2, I have Andor. I never expected a prequel to a Star Wars prequel, and Rogue One would have been a show I love so much, but I just got so connected to the story and the characters. It just feels like this show was operating on a different level of all the other live-action Star Wars things. Like, the set designs and the costumes were A+, the writing obviously is what really stands out in this. Like, so many different characters are actually fleshed out. It feels like a true great drama TV show and an amazing slow burn. Some of the monologues in this are seriously so good, and I genuinely cannot wait for Season 2. But my number 1 is the Clone Wars. While yes, there is definitely a lot of filler that can be categorized as just straight up garbage episodes, but this also gives us some of the greatest Star Wars content we've ever received, and just so much for so many different characters in this. Like, it expands Anakin and Obi-Wan's stories so much. Obviously, we got the awesome continuation of Maul. He became one of the greatest villains in all of Star Wars history too, and the introduction of Ahsoka. And obviously, it had the perfect ending to a series, perfectly tying up all the storylines from this while tying into Revenge of the Sith perfectly. Let me know what your top 3 is in the comments below.